Julianne Moore, one of the greatest actors of her generation, with 5 Oscar nominations to her name going back to the 1990s. What do I think is not one of her better Oscar nominations, and what do I think is the best? Hi, it's Brian. Welcome to the Awards Contender, and it's time for another video in my new series, Oscar Ranking. How would I rank Julianne Moore's 5 Oscar nominations? This is my list, and at the end of the video, I will give you the one performance she gave that I adore that did not get an Oscar nomination, but I think should have. Are you ready? Here we go. Number 5, Best Actress, The End of the Affair.
One was to marry Henry. The other stopped seeing you. And I'm too weak to keep either.
So of Julianne Moore's 5 Oscar nominations, this was the movie I didn't remember very much of. I saw it once, I think when I was in college many years ago. So I took another look at this drama a couple days ago, co-starring Ralph Fiennes, and I know it has its fans. Many people like or love this movie. I find it to be kind of a slog. I mean, it looks beautiful. It also got an Oscar nomination for Best Cinematography, and that's really cool. But in terms of the year in film, that was 1999. This is my all-time favorite year for movies, but The End of the Affair, it would not make my top 50 or anything. I find the career of the director Neil Jordan kind of hit and miss. He's made some wonderful films like The Crying Game, but The End of the Affair, the pacing is lumbersome. It never really has a lot of passion or excitement or tension that keeps you engaged with the narrative. Julianne Moore is fine in this movie. Watching it again a couple days ago, I didn't see anything about her performance that screamed Oscar-worthy to me in this. I mean, I could name off the top of my head 5 or 6 or 7 other wonderful Julianne Moore performances I think should have been Oscar nominated before this one. In The End of the Affair, she has kind of a dreamlike presence, and that works for a while, but at a certain point, I just didn't find her character to have enough emotional weight. It's Julianne Moore. Of course, she's solid in this movie. I'm not going to say she's bad in The End of the Affair. I just don't know if the screenplay gives her quite enough to do. And so honestly, it does kind of surprise me that she got in everywhere, basically. Like, she got in at Golden Globes and at SAG and at the Oscars for this performance. And the movie itself didn't do very well at award season and other categories outside of cinematography. Like, Ralph Fiennes was not getting in, it wasn't getting mentioned in Best Picture and Best Director and things. So it's kind of interesting to me, honestly, in a year where there were so many incredible lead actress performances, and this was one of the 5 to make the final list. I mean, you also have Meryl Streep in Music of the Heart that year, which is not one of her better Best Actress nominations. So I don't know what really happened there. I don't think Julianne Moore necessarily needed this nomination. I would have put in someone like Reese Witherspoon in Election. Now that would have been an all-timer Oscar nomination for Best Actress. But at the end of the day, maybe this nomination helped Julianne Moore get acting jobs like Hannibal and The Hours and Far From Heaven, as we're going to talk about. I would say by now, Julianne Moore should have 6 or 7 Oscar nominations, not just 5. So The End of the Affair, that one can stay. Number 4, Best Actress, Still Alice.
Sometimes I can see the words hanging in front of me and I can't reach them and I don't know who I am and I don't know what I'm going to lose next.
Alright, so this is the film Julianne Moore won her Academy Award for in 2015. She basically swept the season. If you remember, going into the end of 2014, we weren't quite sure how the Best Actress category was going to take shape. I mean, there was early talk of Julianne Moore for Still Alice. I think she won like the Hollywood Film Festival Award, but there wasn't much buzz about the movie itself. I think it had played at Toronto and got picked up for a very late release that year. It did seem clear by the end of 2014, especially when Patricia Arquette went supporting for Boyhood, that there wasn't going to be a frontrunner in Best Actress, and the field was pretty much wide open. And so Julianne Moore saw that opening, swooped in, and collected her gold trophy. I mean, if there was ever a year, I would say in the past couple of decades, where somebody else could have beaten Moore for Best Actress if there had been a better performing movie that got into like Best Picture and Best Director, the only person in Best Actress in 2015 who was actually in a Best Picture nominated movie was Felicity Jones for The Theory of Everything. And that film, like, it was doing well in Best Actor, but Felicity Jones was never really taken seriously as a Best Actress candidate. So who else did you have that year? You had Rosamund Pike for Gone Girl. That would have been my choice. I think she should have swept the season for that bonkers, amazing performance in David Fincher's film. You had Reese Witherspoon for Wild, which was an acclaimed performance, but she already had an Oscar for Walk the Line, so I don't think anyone was prepared to give Witherspoon a second. Same thing with Marion Cotillard for 2 Days, One Night. That was kind of a surprise Oscar nomination, and she, of course, already had an Oscar win in this category. Julianne Moore in 2015 was able to sweep the season because nobody could stop her. There was just no significant competition in that category. And so Moore, on her 5th Oscar nomination, won for a movie that today I don't think anybody's really talking about. Still Alice, if you remember, did not get any other Oscar nominations, only Best Actress. Now, I did like the film, the story of a linguistics professor battling Alzheimer's disease, and Moore is very, very, very good in the film. This is not a bad Best Actress Oscar win by any means, even though she kind of skated to that victory, because this was the year where every voter was like, oh yeah, Julianne Moore, she got a bunch of nominations a few years ago, but she's never actually won anything. Let's give her the gold trophy this year and call it a day. She hasn't been Oscar nominated since, which is frustrating. Still Alice I put at number 4 here because I just don't have very much passion for the movie, even though I do recognize Julianne Moore is very good in it. And there's another performance she gave in 2014 that I loved even more, Maps to the Stars, which was a bigger, bolder, more courageous performance, I would say, than her turn in Still Alice. So again, while I don't think this is a bad Oscar win, I would have preferred Julianne Moore to have won on something else. Number 3, Best Supporting Actress, The Hours.
Well, she's a hostess, and she's incredibly confident, and she's going to give a party. And maybe because she's confident, everyone thinks she's fine. But she isn't.
What a fantastic movie The Hours is. I have seen this film at least 4 or 5 times. Every few years, I get the desire to revisit it, and I just always find it spellbinding from beginning to end. I mean, having all 3 of those women in the same movie. Julianne Moore, Nicole Kidman, and Meryl Streep. I mean, it is a gay man's fantasy cast for any movie ever made, and you have all 3 women doing phenomenal work in a variety of stories. Nicole Kidman obviously went on to win the Oscar for Best Actress, playing Virginia Woolf. Meryl Streep, this is, I would say, one of her top 2 or 3 dramatic performances in a movie that did not get an Oscar nomination. She was nominated that year in Supporting Actress for Adaptation. I do find it kind of insane with 21 Oscar nominations to her name that Meryl Streep did not get a nomination for The Hours. And then Julianne Moore, what a banger year she had in 2002, nominated for 2 different films, The Hours and Far From Heaven. I adore both performances. It's kind of close for me, but if I had to rank one lower than the other, it is The Hours, mainly because when I think about that film, Julianne Moore's character is not typically who I think of first. Honestly, for me, she's third. I know it's kind of category fraud. Nicole Kidman is not in very much of The Hours, and yet she won in lead actress. But I do think that's kind of the Anthony Hopkins Silence of the Lambs situation, where even though her character is not in a ton of the narrative, you're thinking about her when she's not in the movie. Her character has a massive influence on the other two main characters in the story, and so her presence is always felt, and I do think that's why she was in lead and not supporting, and ultimately won. Julianne Moore's character, a 1950s housewife who's having problems with her husband, having some same-sex feelings towards one of her friends, played by Toni Collette. I do feel like this is a performance that could have been pushed aside. Let's just focus on Far From Heaven. That'll be Julianne Moore's Oscar nomination this year. And when it comes to The Hours, let's just give Nicole Kidman all the attention. That could have happened. I do think Julianne Moore's double nominations this year was warranted. She is fantastic in both movies. Both of those performances deserve to be recognized, but I do have her turn in The Hours as number 3, and my number 2 choice is Best Actress, Far From Heaven.
I'll be right there.
Oh, I have to get back.
I don't know about you, but I love when Julianne Moore collaborates with the great Todd Haynes. Starting with Safe in 1995, another one of Moore's great performances that did not get an Oscar nomination. Same with her latest collaboration with Todd Haynes, 2023's May December, which I just made an Oscar fiasco video about. Go check it out if you haven't seen it yet. I do think Julianne Moore would have made for a great and well-deserved Oscar nomination this year for May December in Best Supporting Actress, but I do think her finest work with Todd Haynes arrived in 2002 with Far From Heaven. As, again, a 1950s housewife who's having problems in her marriage and who is finding herself attracted to somebody she can't really have, Julianne Moore in Far From Heaven is on another level. This is one of her best performances in her long career. It's so subtle and nuanced. It never goes too big. She finds the right notes for this character. It always feels true and authentic every step of the way. And I do think in a career of so many excellent performances and films, Far From Heaven for Julianne Moore is right near the top. And as much as I adore that Oscar win for Nicole Kidman, I do think this would have been the better Oscar victory for Julianne Moore over Still Alice. I feel like if Julianne Moore has one Academy Award, it should be for Far From Heaven, and I'm not the only one who thinks it. Julianne Moore shares my opinion. As she talked about on Andy Cohen, on his show, he asked what they think they should have won their Oscars for, and this is what Moore said.
I guess I'd say Far From Heaven.
I completely agree. Even though that season, I do think Moore was in third place behind Nicole Kidman and Renee Zellweger for Chicago. Like, that would have been an all-timer victory for a spectacular performance. I love that movie, and I love her in it. But it's not my choice for number 1. My choice for the number 1 Julianne Moore Oscar nomination is Best Supporting Actress, Boogie Nights.
My son was never exposed to drugs or pornographic material or any of those things. My husband just assumed.
I saw it with my own eye, Maggie.
Julianne Moore's first Oscar nomination in early 1998 is still my favorite. I do think this is by far the best of the 5 films she's been nominated for. I have watched Boogie Nights at least 10 times, and I never get sick of it. I think this film is a masterpiece from top to bottom. That writing, that direction, that cinematography, that ensemble cast. What an incredible cast that movie has. Mark Wahlberg, I don't think has ever been better. Burt Reynolds gave the performance of his career. He won a Golden Globe and was nominated at the Oscars. You have William H. Macy and Philip Seymour Hoffman and Don Cheadle, and everybody's memorable, but I've always found the best performance in Boogie Nights to be by Julianne Moore. I adore her turn in this movie. She's kind of motherly in some scenes, but she also has this raw sexuality, this intensity. That main sex scene she films with Wahlberg about halfway through the movie is one of the standout moments of the film. The way she's so adept at acting really bad. That moment, like she's so bad as an actress, like in the movie within the movie. You really buy into it. Her character's lack of talent as an actor, and for so much of the movie, she blends in really well with that large ensemble cast. But she also has these emotionally devastating moments when she's alone or nearly alone. But when I think about Boogie Nights, like when this movie pops into my head, I think about, well, the last scene, to be honest. I think about the last scene, but also the custody hearing when she's trying to get custody of her kid, and it comes up that she's an adult film star, and we have this quick cut to her crying outside the building. That to me is one of the most heartbreaking images in Julianne Moore's long career on film. It makes her character so real and relatable. You feel for her, especially every moment thereafter in the movie, if you already weren't before. It is a very complex and courageous performance, but it's so much more than, oh, Julianne Moore is getting naked and playing a porn star. Like, that's not what makes this my number one choice. It's her ability to empathize with this character, what makes her tick, what are her goals and her dreams, and even if those dreams are going to eventually come crashing down, she is going to be the better woman for it. This was, for me, way back in 1998, the clear winner at the Oscars for Best Supporting Actress. Julianne Moore in Boogie Nights is so much better, I think, than Kim Basinger in LA Confidential. I don't really understand why Basinger won the Academy Award that year, other than there was just a lot of love for LA Confidential as a movie. I think that's what did it. Boogie Nights only got 3 Oscar nominations: supporting actor, supporting actress, and screenplay, and nothing else. Like, it didn't get into Best Picture and Best Director. And there were probably some Academy members who refused to watch it, didn't want to watch a movie about the porn industry. So it makes sense why Moore wasn't more competitive that season. But I think in terms of the quality of the work, her go for broke performance that I think is beautiful and brilliant in every way, yes, all these years later, I still think Boogie Nights is Julianne Moore's best Oscar nomination. And it's absolutely the performance she should have won for. Now, as we wrap up our conversation, what is a performance Julianne Moore has given that did not get an Oscar nomination, but I think should have? There are so many choices, honestly. As I said, I do think Moore should have 6 or 7 nominations by now. I mean, you could pick Safe from 1995. She is great in that. You can go with The Kids Are Alright, where I do think she came close. And then, of course, May December, which I do think she deserved an Oscar nomination for. And then Maps to the Stars. She is incredible in that. I don't think the movie was very well liked, and that hurt her in the end. Voters decided to go with Still Alice instead, a film that came out the same year. But Maps to the Stars, Julianne Moore is bonkers great in that. If you've never seen her performance in David Cronenberg's movie, check it out. For me, this came down to 2 choices. It was very close. I almost went with A Single Man. She got a Golden Globe Award nomination and Best Supporting Actress for that film. It's one of my all-time favorite gay films, and she is very memorable in it. But ultimately, my choice is for her other collaboration with Paul Thomas Anderson, 1999's Magnolia.
Tell him it's okay. I'm okay. Tell him thank you for taking care.
I know this guy has made some wonderful films in the 21st century, but Magnolia is still my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson film. It's so ambitious and sprawling and masterful, and has an even more astonishing ensemble cast than Boogie Nights. Tom Cruise gives the performance of his career in that film. I still wish she had won the Oscar. And then in Best Supporting Actress, we had some good Oscar nominees that year. But I do think there was room for Julianne Moore in Magnolia. She did much better that award season, as I talked about in Best Actress for The End of the Affair. I know she won at least 1 or 2 major critics prizes in Best Supporting Actress for Magnolia. And it's like, hey, she was going to be double nominated 3 years later. Why not double nominate her in early 2000? I think it would have been well deserved, just like she did in Boogie Nights. In Magnolia, Julianne Moore creates a very complicated character, someone we're not sure at the beginning if we should like. Is she in a relationship with this much older dying man played by Jason Robards just to get his money? It's a lot more nuanced than that. And in terms of having an Oscar moment, she's got at least one when she goes off in that pharmacy, one of my favorite scenes of the entire movie. I think Julianne Moore is phenomenal in Magnolia and deserved an Oscar nomination. And now, here is my final ranking. Number 5, Best Actress, The End of the Affair. Number 4, Best Actress, Still Alice. Number 3, Best Supporting Actress, The Hours. Number 2, Best Actress, Far From Heaven. And number 1, Best Supporting Actress, Boogie Nights. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and let me know in the comments below, how would you rank Julianne Moore's 5 Academy Award nominations, and we'll see you next time at the Awards Contender.